At LinkedIn, we know hiring is a big deal for your small business. Sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming. LinkedIn uses data that you can't find anywhere else to give you the best candidates, all so you can feel confident you're hiring the best person for the job. And even a little hiring bliss. See why 86% of small businesses who post a job on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within a day. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/achieve. LinkedIn, your next great hire is here.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got a special guest for us today, Dr. Josh McConkey. He's a ER physician coming out of North Carolina, and is known as the MacGyver doc, and he's really talking to us all about business and ideas. We're going to talk about health tips for men over 40, Swifty syndrome, the weight behind the spear, tech leadership, business, resiliency. And I'm really happy to have him on and dissect it and pick his brains. Josh, welcome.
Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, I really enjoy connecting with other fellow physicians and doing great work, spreading the message of resiliency. And so talk about your story and your background, and we'll dive into the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small rural town in western Nebraska, and an entire family lineage of railroaders. So my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father were all railroaders. And I was the first McConkey, like cousins, aunts, uncles, anybody to go to college. So I broke that mold a little bit. I could not be contained, joined the military as well, and I've been very fortunate to find myself where I can put a career in medicine and the military together. I've got to travel the world, spend time in the State Department. I've served with combat search and rescues, the pararescues, the PJs, jumping out of airplanes, saving lives, doing all kinds of crazy things. And now I'm a commander at Andrews Air Force Base. Wow. Living here in North Carolina. I got a wife and 3 kids, and I feel super blessed. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I really love that. And like I said, the mission of this podcast is to connect thought leaders and influencers with audience searching for questions to their answers to their questions and solutions to their problems. And so we'll start it off and talk about just, you started behind the spear and you wrote a book about it. What did you name it that? What is it about? And we'll dive more.
So be the weight behind the spear. It's my personal leadership ethos. I've been very fortunate to work with some special operations, and you see the tip of the spear. These are men and women doing some pretty amazing things, jumping out of airplanes, taking down bin Laden. Some of my team members had been on in Thailand in 2018. There was a team from Okinawa. They got called in to rescue those kids that were stranded in the caves during the rainy season. So when you pick up a bat phone, like the red bat phone, and these are the people that you call when you have an opportunity to work with individuals like that, it's pretty special. I cannot do those things. I don't jump out of airplanes. I save lives. I don't take lives. And you realize working with these types of individuals that they all have somebody in their life, coaches, volunteers, families, and mentors in their lives that gave them the amazing confidence to do what they do. That is the best resource we have in this country, is our people. Every American has something to give. Be the weight behind the spear for our future heroes, our future leaders. And as an emergency doctor, just my concerns over the past few years, I see the crazy mental health crisis, anxiety, depression, suicide. And then as a military commander, that same group of young kids is now serving in our military, and they lack resiliency, tons of anxiety. Just the ability to overcome obstacles has been severely diminished. And there's just some policy decisions that were made over the past few years that we were all part of. And you shut out kids from their church, their school, and completely socially isolate them. These are the repercussions of those decisions. And so that prompted me to write the book. I need people to engage their communities and do something to save this generation, not just whine about it.
Yeah. I started to see the downfall of our our country back in 2000. It's really declines a lot since then. And, there's so many factors at play. And so I love the work that you're doing. So one thing is talking about is mental health and leadership, and mental health has really entered the phrase since 2020. And how are you spearheading efforts to build mentally healthy leaders in our society?
So if you wait, so for business leaders, for community leaders, families, teachers, anybody that works with kids that are now entering our workforce, if you wait till now to do something about it, you really miss the boat. And that's why we have a crazy crisis with anxiety, depression, and unfortunately, a lot of suicides. And it rips my heart out every single time I sit down and cry with those families. It is so hard. But the earlier you get involved, so now, coach, volunteer. If you like to coach soccer or t-ball, or maybe that's not your skill, go volunteer in your church or your school, or even get into your local animal shelter. Like, those animals can be mental health therapy for someone. Those mental health animals support animals. So everything that you do, everybody has something different to give. And what you do every single day really matters. Some people really discount their role. And when you talk about building up the future leadership and building those skills and resiliency for our next generation, you're literally talking about national security for this country. All right. It's a huge role to play, and don't discount your role. You matter.
Mm. Yeah. Question I love to really ask is are we as a country done for? Or do we like outgrow ourselves and we're just like, there's like Rome and there's Greece, there's England, we can name it. And
Yeah, boy, Rome didn't fall in a day. That's one of those famous sayings.
yeah.
I certainly see a lot of the challenges that we're facing as a nation.
Mm.
And I believe in America. I believe that this is the last bastion of freedom on planet Earth. I lived overseas during COVID. Everyone saw what happened in a lot of areas of Europe and even Canada. But living in Australia and just watching the things that happened made me very thankful that I'm an American. So I believe in America, and that's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm getting out. I'm speaking. I've started a nonprofit organization as well, the Weight Behind the Spear Foundation. And it's really just getting people to engage communities, promote volunteerism. And right now we're raising funds for Western North Carolina that was completely destroyed with the floods from Hurricane Helene, just right at the end of September of 2024. So there's a lot of work. Every community has something. You've seen what's happened in California. I grew up in Nebraska, so there's tornadoes all over the place. And just everybody has something to give for their community, and every community needs something different. So just get involved.
Yeah. Which kind of brings me to my next question is, we're so divided and there's rich, poor, there's Democrat, Republican, so how can we arm the next generation of leaders with the tools to unite us together?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this is the most divided this country has been generationally and politically since I've been alive. I'm 47. I'll be 48 here in a few months. So getting close to 50 years old. And wow, it's just so bitterly divided. I think the one thing that can really unite us is a common goal. So the 1960s, you had the space race, right? John F. Kennedy gets up there, challenges America to get a man on the moon. And we need to recognize how big of a problem that we have with this younger generation. If you don't recognize there is a problem, you're not going to be able to fix it. And I think everyone, whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent, wherever you fall on that political spectrum, everybody needs this generation to be successful. So I think we can all agree building leadership skills, engaging your community, volunteering, being a mentor. These are all very positive things, and that's the best of America. So we can all at least agree on that. So let's focus on that. That's something we can all agree on.
Yeah. And what attributes do you believe will make for a good leader in the next, because there's just kind of, when you hear about Doge and all the like USAID and now all these, what attributes do you believe makes for a good leader?
So like ownership of problems, standing up to listen. This can has been kicked down the road for how many decades? It's just, everyone probably has some different thoughts, but there is a huge problem. So just take ownership of it. If you take that ownership, this is my problem, I have to fix this. You can put that into so many different aspects of your life, school, training, sports, your church and schools. Just take ownership of that. And for me as a military leader, that ownership is really important. Accountability. If things aren't happening, you have to have that accountability. That's what we have not had in our government for as long as probably my grandparents can even remember. So stepping up and doing that, and just those little things of not micromanage. So I've been a military commander. I've had 23 years in the military. I'm not a genius. I don't know everything, but I evaluate talent. And so as a leader, you have to surround yourself with good people. And when you do that, you let them do their job. Don't micromanage. If they're not getting the job done, then I take that accountability as a leader. I made a bad decision. I got a reverse decision now, and that person is probably not my leadership chain anymore. But you have to have that ownership and accountability. And then don't micromanage. Let people do their job. You empower the people around you, down to the youngest airmen. I let them know that what they do matters. And I try to empower them to make decisions. And when you do that, they make a few mistakes. That's okay. You coach them up. You learn resiliency. Right now, we have lawnmower parents and helicopter parents. Like, when we were kids, it was probably more helicopter. Now it's lawnmower. So they just mow down every obstacle in their kid's path. They want everything perfect. Oh, nothing can upset little Joey here. When you do that, they don't learn anything. And they have zero resiliency skills. They don't have the ability to overcome some of the most simple things. So you have to let your kids get out there and make some mistakes. Make sure they don't make the big ones. You're there for them, but let them get out there. And so you empower them to make decisions, and they're going to make some bad ones here and there, but those are teaching moments. Mm-hmm. So those things put together, that really encompassses my leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of residency, and just, you're going to make mistakes, but just don't build the patience. So.
Do you remember your first night on call ever?
Yeah.
How paralyzing with fear. So my first rotation was internal medicine. And this is like July, intern year, and you're on call. I mean, with some cardiac patients and AFib and just internal medicine type things. And just, oh my gosh, I don't want to, you're just paralyzed with fear that you're going to kill somebody. But you realize that there's a support structure around you. Number one, there's the nurses that make sure the interns don't do anything stupid and kill anybody. And then you've got your supervising resident, you've got an attending physician. Just know when to ask for help. You have to know your limitations and know what you don't know. Doctors don't kill people, but doctors that don't know their limitations kill people. Surround yourself with good people and lean on them when you need to.
Yeah. And also shifting, because the world is much different since the internet came in, is a lot of our problems in our society today caused by social media or Swiftie syndrome. Talk about that.
So yeah, the Swiftie syndrome, that's a nice catchy title that everybody loves, because everybody knows who Taylor Swift is. She's a global phenomenon, rock star. She dominates music. She dominates social media and does a very good job of that. So social media it's a blessing and a curse, because it's changed business, it's changed marketing, it changes the way that we interact. And for people that were alive long before the iPhone and social media, it's a nice addition, and I'll get too fired up about it. But for kids that this is all they've ever known, that digital world has become their real life. And so it's caused a lot of issues in that they have constant 24/7 stimulation, and they don't know how to respond out in the real world anymore. And so that's why you see a lack of communication skills, and just like the cyberbullying and those types of things. So you used to have to get in someone's face and punch them in the nose. Now you can sit there and just badger them incessantly on their social media and make their life hell. And for me, I would just shut it off. It's dumb. I'm just going to ignore it. There's an entire generation of Americans, that's literally their life, and that perception is their reality, where parents have the biggest role to play in that. So the Swiftie syndrome is just recognizing when that's getting too out of control for your kids. And so just 3 nice simple tips that you can do: the age restrictions. So social media in general, for a developing brain, or those dopamine surges, and it's not really healthy under age 16. And there's been a lot of arguments for under 18. So you see in Australia really step up and get aggressive, and has completely banned social media for children under 16. I'm not a real big fan of governments really getting involved in those types of decisions. I think those need to be parental decisions. There's a very strong argument. The American Academy of Pediatrics has a good stance on that. And then if they do have social media, having time restrictions. You can't let them, my kids, they have iPads, they don't have social media, but at 4:30 every day, they're just like salivating. We try to restrict it during the week, but on the weekends at 4:30, they can have some iPad time, and they're just like Pavlov dogs. Like they're watching that clock when it hits 4:30 straight into the iPad. And then the other things is just having that supervision. So I call this the drive-by. Don't get all weird about it and up in their face. Just that little casual drive-by. Hey, what are you watching? Who's this influencer? Who's, asking some of those basic questions, whether you care or don't care, doesn't really matter. At least act like you are, and let them know that you're going to do it sporadically. Don't announce it. Just so they have got that little bug in the back of their mind there. If I'm doing anything too nefarious, mom and dad are probably going to find out. So just those little drive-by audits, just checking in on things. But those three things right there are critically important. And the less social media that they're exposed to at very young ages, they have direct correlations to anxiety, depression, and suicide. So if you just ask yourself a simple question as a parent, would you hand your kid a loaded gun, or would you hand your kid the keys to your car at 10, 11, 12 years old? Just be careful. Just go take that car out for a spin. You would not do that. You would not give your kid a loaded gun. So why would you give them social media without supervision? It's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. And then a corollary to that question is, now you think artificial intelligence is going to solve a lot of the problems, or is it going to add fuel to the fire?
Yeah, it's great. I do a lot of writing. When I write awards packages and I write things up, I'm not a genius writer by any means. Put that through AI will certainly help. For my book, I had a great editor. It taught me a lot. I thought I was a great writer. Editors did a fantastic job, made it a much better book. But when used for the right reasons for AI, I think in medicine, I'm not very comfortable at all with AI in medicine, just because you cannot substitute experience. So I've practiced medicine for over 20 years, was a Duke professor. You cannot substitute that experience for some computer spitting out algorithms. Things are going to get missed. There's slang terms. This is the reason I do speak a little Spanish, but whenever I have someone that speaks Spanish, I always have an interpreter. I'm not comfortable. I'm going to miss some little slang term or something, or misinterpret something that, it's going to get somebody killed. So AI is great with some things. I don't think it has a real place in medicine diagnostics with physician interactions, because you just can't substitute experience for that. But it's got a lot of helpful uses. I don't know if it solves the problems with the mental health crisis. Certainly is probably gonna, there's all kinds of crazy things that you see with relationships, and you've had people that have apparently fallen in love with computer generated AI characters, and there's some real bizarre stories that you'll hear. That I don't have any experience with that. I haven't seen anything like that in my ER yet, but you hear some pretty wild stories.
Yeah. And tying it around, what is your vision for resiliency? You mentioned allowing people to make mistakes, and how can people function in this really rapidly changing society with technology and just everything just so polarized? What are your parting words for the audience?
Don't be afraid to fail. So one of my book signing events at Barnes & Noble, I had someone ask a fantastic question. He said, I work in this business. They're asking me to step up to some leadership. Are you ever ready to be a leader? And I answered that. I was like, that is one of the best questions I've had in a long time. No, you're never ready. You just have to do it. Nobody is just innately, I'm just a fantastic God-given gifted leader. No, that doesn't happen. There's some people that have some gifts that lend themselves to being good leaders, personality traits and characteristics, but nobody is just ready to be a leader. You jump into it, you're going to make some mistakes, learn from good people. The military is famous for developing just fantastic leaders. All of these kids coming out of college, coming out of ROTC or the military academies, are second lieutenants, all right, or ensigns in the Navy. So there's always these jokes. The most dangerous thing in the United States Army is a second lieutenant. Little gold butter bar. That's what separates good leaders from bad leaders, is the humility, not having a big ego, learning from, officers, from your senior enlisted members. Oh man, those sergeants, those NCOs, those non-commissioned officers will teach you everything that you need to know. And if you're too stupid or have too big of an ego, then you're not going to learn, and you're just going to wash out. And so that's what separates people. So nobody just naturally has those skills. But if you naturally have the ability to learn from other people's mistakes and learn from some of your mistakes, hopefully not some terrible ones, but that's what really makes a great leader, and that develops over time.
Yeah. How can people find out more about you and follow your work and check out your book and connect with you?
Yeah, so the website for the book is weightbehindthespear.com, WEIGHT, Weight Behind the Spear, and the foundation is weightbehindthespear.com/foundation. On Twitter and X, it's McConkey07. On Instagram, it's Josh McConkey MD.
Yeah, I love that. And I really enjoyed talking with you and hearing about the work, and really fascinating discussion, and really benefit to the audience. So thanks so much for coming on.
Chris, a pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.